large group, and I've really enjoyed getting to know everybody. So I'm going to turn it over to Donna now, Donna Hughes. We've known Donna, how long? 15 years, 20 years? When did you start, Donna?
I started working with Extension in 2001.
Okay, so a good 15, 18 years. Donna is a huge part of Extension. She works for StoneX marketing company and StoneX Financial Incorporated. They actually do a lot of different things. And she has been kind of our primary teacher for our master marketer class, talk about features and options and marketing your product. And so we were excited that she agreed to come up here. She lives in Abilene, and she will do a fantastic job.
Okie dokes. I am thrilled to be up here tonight. It's been a while since I've been up in Amarillo, and used to live here for about 10, 12 years. And he was always kind enough to give me an invite to come and do a little bit of his programs. And I am eternally grateful to you for that. It was a good education for me for many years. My story, I'm originally from Chicago. I've been in Texas 20 years, and I went into the commodity business right out of high school. My deal was I was gonna go to New York and be a dancer, Broadway, because I'm a classically trained dancer, vocalist, actress, kind of thing. And I was 17 when I graduated high school, and my father said, absolutely not. And so I went and got a part-time job that I would have kept for a couple of months. If it went by my plan, I was going to save up some money, and when I turned 18, I was going to go to New York. Well, my first job with the temporary agency was at the Chicago Mountain Exchange. And so as the months went by, I kind of got used to the paychecks and got used to working down in Chicago, and decided, well, maybe I'll just get dancing thing on the side. And anyway, I started out trading pork bellies. If anybody's familiar with pork bellies, they delisted the contract since like 2011. I actually traded the last pork belly contract. I worked for a gentleman. He was a great teacher with this business, and did some courses along the way to educate myself in the commodity field. But it was basically those gentlemen and ladies of the business back then that taught me, all about the industry. And I had the pleasure of working with corporate CEOs and presidents of companies like Swift and Smithfield, back when they did not have hedging departments. My boss, that was his peer group, and so they came to him, and he basically taught them as CEOs, and then various management departments came into fruition, and the rest is history. And they said, nice to know you. Thanks for all the work. And it is what it is today. So my boss is retired. He's about 86 right now. And anyway, pork bellies are out of the picture. I came to Texas, started doing some retail business with folks like yourself, small corporate entities, or larger farms and individual producers. It didn't matter to me. Everybody's important in my book, and that dollar means as much to the small producers as it does to somebody who has a multi-million-dollar operation. Everything's relevant. So I love doing programs with Extension, and I hope y'all will learn a little bit about my industry. How many have any kind of knowledge or experience with teachers? How many have that raised their hand as a good experience with options for teachers? Okay. Yeah, that's right. When I Texas, from people that I worked with out in Chicago, they were all successful. Everybody's driving around, with these big houses, big cars, the whole thing. Having a really great life. When I came to Texas, I was hearing all these horror stories. And I'm like, something's wrong with this picture. And after talking with people, I kind of found out that, you know, it was really a matter of lack of information, little information, no information, the wrong information. People didn't work with someone who was like trying to teach them how to do this thing. And I got a lot of, well, I just told them I trust you. If it would do it as though it was your money. And basically they didn't understand what actually happened. So that kind of taught me it's all about the education, which is why I love extension. So we're going to look a little bit today about livestock and grain markets. I know y'all, I got the demographic and y'all are major in as far as the commodities go, more cattle producers here than with the row crops, but we're going to cover that anyway, especially on the feed grains, just because of the relation with the livestock. Again, my name is Donna Hughes. I'm based in Abilene and I'm with StoneX. You might have heard of them. They used to be just like a company that would deal with like elevators or corporations, that kind of thing. They bought our company about 3 years ago, Daniels Trading, because they wanted that more intimate producer aspect of the business. They did not have that, and that's what they wanted to bring to their stable. So this is a disclaimer, a lot of regulatory stuff in my industry. You got to dot the I's, cross the T's, and wing it into compliance and hope they say, okay, that's a good idea, you're approved. Basically what this says is, you know, you can lose more than you put up for your account. There's a substantial risk to futures and options trading. Not all the products that are offered out are suitable for all producers. That's the job of a broker to determine what it is we're going to use, when we're going to use it, how much, what's your comfort level, get to know your client, all that stuff. So some of the factors that I look at as a broker when I'm wanting to help somebody maneuver through this thing is what factors are we looking at when it comes to what's going on in the world that's going to affect pricing on crops, livestock, weather. Obviously, here in the Panhandle, you've had all of the above: drought, excessive rains, fair weather. So depending on what time of the year it is, planting, harvesting, all of that, those are things, the way the weather works, that's going to affect the pricing on our crops and livestock. Domestic political policies, a big one is Farm Bill. How's the Farm Bill affecting you? How is crop insurance legislation affecting you? Anything the government does on a monetary basis, how is that going to affect you? These are all the things that we're looking at. Foreign political policies. We've got some of that going on right now with the wars that are overseas. You know, we just told Venezuela not too long ago, well, if you do your elections right, then, you know, we're going to forego that oil deal that we said we're going to minimize. So, you know, those types of things we're always looking at. Global monetary policies. What are other countries doing with their currencies? Are they raising interest rates? Are they leaving them the same? Because those things ultimately affect what could go on in the US. It could influence what goes on with our monetary policies. War, a big word right now, 3 letters, but a big word. We've got wars going on in 2 areas of the globe. This is the first time since World War II that we've had conflicts of this major capacity going on in more than one area of the globe. Interest rates, you know what's been going on there. We got a break this month from the Federal Reserve, and December looks like we're going to get a break as well. Now everybody's trying to speculate on, well, when are they going to lower the interest rates? But they're not going to be too quick to make a commitment to that, because we still have so much information that comes out on just about a weekly basis that they're going to base that decision on. Global demand, China, a big trading partner of ours. China's backed off on a lot of the products that they've been buying. They have come back into the market recently for some of the grains. But again, global demand depends on, you know, are our relations good with a particular country? What's our dollar index doing? Is our dollar index rising? That makes our goods and services for overseas purchasers, it makes it more expensive. Domestic demand, especially like for corn producers, a good example would be ethanol demand. We've got other things, you know, what about beef production off of our cow herds? All different types of domestic demand that we're looking at depending on what the commodity is. And the domestic and global production, all of these things with weather could affect what's going on in different areas of the globe. Right now, we're looking at South America. You know, areas of South America, some parts are getting too much rain for the time of year that they don't need that much. Some areas are still too dry. And so this is affecting our pricing with soybeans and corn and a little bit back to the wheat. What's going on domestically as far as production goes? You know, we're looking at, as far as cattle goes, we're looking at, you know, the smallest numbers that we've had in quite a while. When we have drought, our wheat producers, cotton producers, they're kind of sweating it out. When is that next rain coming? I just drove up from Abilene today and, you know, going through areas like Lubbock and Snyder, especially Snyder and Roscoe area. You know, a lot of dryland cotton has been taken out. And, you know, this is what, the second year in a row that it's been, you know, to that type of effect. So right now what we're looking at, again, weather, drought conditions in the US, depending on where you're talking about. The drought was actually more centered on the western part of the US, and then it started drifting over. And so now we've got areas of the southeast that are in drought as well. And so, you know, those producers last year, they didn't really have to think about that sort of thing. Now this year they are. South American weather, again, we're getting excessive rains in some areas. Some areas are too dry. We've got planting going on for soybeans. If the soybeans don't get planted, then their second crop, safrinha corn in Brazil, is not going to get planted on a timely basis and with the optimum window. And so that could decrease that crop. And so corn traders are looking at that right now and trying to figure out the timing on all of this. War action on multiple fronts. We've been talking about, as far as wheat goes, we've been talking about what's been going on in the Black Sea region for, it's going to be 2 years now in February. And, you know, if anybody was keeping track of the wheat market back then, it's like the minute everybody started talking about war in the Black Sea and cutting off shipments and all that, you know, we had wheat skyrocketing. We had double-digit values, and now we're back down to like $6, $6.80, you know, depending on what contract you're looking at. Equity market volatility. How many are invested in the stock market right now? How many are watching their statements every day? Don't. Don't. Yeah, so, you know, again, I mean, I trade a lot of S&P, mini S&P products. So I'm having to watch it pretty much minute by minute, and it'll drive you crazy. The dollar index, with all these monetary policies going on right now, interest rates going higher. Of course, that's going to affect our dollar index, world currencies. We're wanting to see how is the dollar working against the British pound? How is the dollar working against, you know, the ruble? or the Argentine currency. Buyers overseas are looking at these things to determine what do I get the most bang for my buck? Where do I get it? And of course, it's going to go back. It's all numbers, and so the currency has a lot to do with that. Obviously, domestic and global economic policies, and then of course we have the interest rates again. So on the economics, interest rate hikes, that's going to be making your working capital, any kind of purchases you have for cattle or inputs, anything like that. If you're financing, it's going to make it more expensive. Dollar index rallies, that's going to make our goods and services more expensive overseas. Again, all of this inflation, obviously our prices are higher for things that we have to do as inputs. Unemployment numbers, those come out every week. You know, the Fed's watching those to see what we're going to do with interest rates. And everybody keeps talking about a recession. That can keeps getting kicked down the road. And so, you know, everybody's watching all this. Corporate earnings, we just had a bunch of those last week, and we have some more this week. When companies like Apple or Microsoft, when they show less than expected on quarterly earnings, or their forecasts don't come in quite what the public thinks it should be, then of course that affects the stock market. And everything is interrelated. So that's why, as a producer, those things you have to watch as well. Retail sales and housing starts. Retail sales, that's going to affect your cotton. Cotton traders look at that. Housing starts, again, that's an indication of what's going on in the economy. How many houses are being built? What are the housing permits that are being issued? Does that give us an idea? You know, are people not committing themselves to these big, larger purchases? You know, going back to you know, what's gonna happen with our economy. So here's the dollar index as of today. And as you can see, we've been trending higher for quite a while. And we've been range bound since the beginning of October. But yesterday, well, Friday, we took a big nosedive with all of that. That's because of the economic numbers that were released on Friday. It showed more, the unemployment rate had come out, and that decrease in the dollar index started as soon as those numbers were released. Now today we started to try to warm back on that. So on Friday, we had a good rally in our commodities. If the dollar trends higher, it's going to pressure our commodities. But because we had such a decrease in the dollar index value on Friday, that's why we got a rally in corn, we got a rally in soybeans, the wheat rallied. Unfortunately, cattle did not. But generally, that's how it'll happen. With the dollar index decrease, we should have seen you know, some higher prices for cotton. But cotton went back to cotton fundamentals, not affected by what the dollar did. So it will affect it, but maybe that commodity's own general fundamental will outweigh it. And so these are the things you have to guess at when you're trying to get things done in market. So there's 4 basic principles for utilizing markets, and you as a producer, keep these in mind. You have to assume that you've got a 50-50 chance that your market prediction is correct. So if you're going to say cattle's going to go up in the next month, 50-50 chance. It's going to go up next year, 50-50 chance. Your marketing should have consistency to it. And you go through the same process. You're not in farming or ranching for a few years. So your marketing practices should not be for a few years. If what you're doing doesn't work, then you have to tweak your plan. You have to know how to tweak your plan. Because you can't throw the marketing ideas away. You have input so much time, dollars, energy, everything into that thing that you're producing. The most important part of it after that is, how do I sell it? And if you're not getting versed on doing that in a consistent and good way, then the rest of it, you're saying, well, what am I doing here? Every producer in this room is affected by the futures market, whether you play it or not. If futures rally in cattle and you have to buy calves, you're going to be paying more. If corn rallies, wheat rallies, you're going to be paying more feed grains. You're not participating in any of these futures markets, but the cash and futures have a correlation. Every day you have a choice to do something, and doing nothing is still making a choice. So you want to make your choices wisely, and you want to be educated when you make these choices. You're going to make mistakes in marketing, and that's why you have to have a little bit of knowledge. You have to keep working at your knowledge. One more thing in your bucket, right? You have to keep working at it, and you have to pull in your good partners who are going to help you do that. You have to have your good banker. You have to have somebody who's going to advise you well on your inputs. Hopefully you have you have customers who you can rely on to give you good feedback about what's going on on the other end of things. As a broker, my job is to give information. It's to give you information to help you make a good decision. And then when you think you want to do something, then it's up to me to find the tool, the landscape of tools that we have to help you do that. And it should always be in a way that you're not going to have a whole lot of comfort up front on it. It takes a little bit of trust, it takes a little bit of faith. But the more you educate yourself, like going to extension programs all the time, the more you educate yourself, the more comfortable you'll become with the process. And then you'll be more apt to use it. And it's going to be another tool in your tool. So hedging, the process of hedging is to protect the asset value of either cash or your production or the cost of your inputs or capital utilized to finance your operations. So hedging can be used in a whole array of ways. If we work with Oscar Mayer and Company, we're going to hedge purchases that they need to make in order to make bacon, the end product. Well, we may also help that hog farmer with the price of hogs and what we can do for him in hedging that against decline. Cattle producer, we're going to hedge for market losses. We may also be working with Tyson on box feed values. So, interest rates, interest on the money that you have to finance, we have a tool for that to help mitigate the risk on interest rates. We have cash grain programs, just a whole array of different things in order to help a producer. We hedge energies, we hedge fertilizer, all sorts of things. So futures allegedly move in relation to the cash market. They're subject to delivery if you're utilizing the front month contract. So if it were December, and you were in the December contract, if you had a position in the December contract, then you're subject either to make or take delivery, depending on your long or short position. And I'll get into that in a little bit. it's subject to margin. Margin on a position, basically, it's like a deposit. You have to think of how much total for one contract you're controlling. And the exchange asks you to put up a fraction of that amount in order to have a futures contract in your account. The value of your account will change penny for penny, dollar for dollar with market moves. So if you're long cattle, let's say you're long December cattle at 180. I'm just using the number 180, and the market goes down to 175. Then you have a $5 per hundredweight loss in your account at $400 a point. So you just lost $2,000 in your account today. Plus you had to put up the margin to hold that position, which is about another $2,500. So it can get real pricey real soon. But you have to think, if the market, if the market's going down and I'm long the market, why am I long the market? Am I speculating, or am I reowning maybe cattle that I sold a few months ago when I thought the market was going to be high? So you have to weigh your positions. Why am I taking that position, and am I going to be upset if I lose that money? Or do I consider that part of the overall plus and minus on that cash sale? It functions as a sale. So if you sell December cattle at 180 as a hedge, if you sell one contract, then if it's a futures contract, you're saying I am comfortable selling my cattle at 180. And we can do some things to enhance that a little bit, but generally that's what it is. You're picking a price. I'm comfortable with that price. It includes my inputs and everything that I have in those cattle. If I sell them at 180, the market gets up there, that's fine. If the market goes down, I'm hedged at 180, and the market's going to give me back dollar for dollar as the market goes down. To make it a little bit more complicated, options, back when I started in this business, there was no such thing as options. So I had to learn what those were. And again, I had a great teacher. Options are a derivative of a futures contract. So it will not reimburse you or take away from you the value of an account penny for penny until much later down the road. So that's one thing that you have to consider when you're doing options. If you're long a put option, you have the right but not the obligation to sell a futures contract at a specified price. And that's when you get into the delivery room. So if I wanted to buy a December 180 put in cattle, and the market starts going down, and the market went down to 170, that's a $10 loss in market. But because I have a put option that's not going to reimburse me penny for penny, it's going to reimburse me based on what we call a delta, a percentage of the market move. It's probably only going to reimburse me like $5. Unless we get down to like 160, then it would probably reimburse me about 17 of the $20. Because the deeper you get into the price, or the closer you get to expiration, that's when the option becomes more like a futures contract. But up until that point, you're still trading only a percentage of the contract. And people are okay with that because there's no margin. You don't have to put up that $2,500, $2,600. If the market goes against you, you don't have to put more money in your account to finance your position. If the market goes up, your put option is losing value, but you're making it on the cash sum. So let's say that same 180 December cattle put, maybe you bought it for $3, a hundredweight. and the market goes up to 190. Then you've probably lost the majority of that $3 for the put option. But you gain $10 on the cash side, because you sell your cattle, that's what you base your cash sale on. So put options, they'll give you a floor. And then leave the top side open. And there's things we can do with that too, to enhance it and reduce the cost and all kinds of things, but you know, it depends on everybody's different risk level and all of that. If you're just looking to lock in a floor, kind of set it and forget it, and don't worry about it, then options are the way to go, because you can always lock in a higher price, even if the market goes up. If I had that money to put, and the market goes up to $2, then probably for another $2, I can get your put option up to 188. So you always have the choice. You always have the choice to raise your floor on puts. And usually what we do is we try to spend an extra $1 to get as much as $4 on the price level. And if we can't, then we just kind of wait and see what the market's going to do. But it's always, you know, comes down to the numbers, the economics on all of it.
I have questions for my ministers a lot. They waited to the last damn minute because that's what they do. How late is too late to market this crop?
How late is?
It's too late to market your commodity. Can you do it? What do you recommend? What's the optimal window?
If you have it hedged.
If you've done nothing.
If you've done nothing.
Yes.
So when you say market, are you talking about cash or hedging?
I'm talking about hedging.
Okay, so if you have nothing hedged right now, like with row crops, we'll tell you, you know, at this time of year, it's our recommendation that you have 20% of your crop hedged. Maybe depending on the pricing, it all depends on what the pricing is and has been. 20% of your crop hedged, 20% cash sold. That leaves you 60% at that time to play around with until harvest is delivered. Okay. With cattle, generally when people, except for like this last year because everything has just been so crazy, as the market's been trending higher, a lot of times people will wait to hedge it. And I know it's probably against the advice of your bakers. But you know, everybody thinks it's gonna go higher. If it's going higher, it's gonna go even higher. And that's a problem that we have as a broker, to say, okay, that's fine, but do a percentage, do just a little bit. You know, so at least if it starts to drop back, at least you can say, yeah, I did something at that price. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get away that much. You try to hit a home run, and you're going to end up striking out. I've seen it time and time and time again. I've been in this business 45 years, and I can't even tell you, it makes people better hedgers or more money to hedge if they have that corner story. But you really don't want to have that if you don't have it. It's kind of like hiring anybody else for advice. You know, if you're going to hire a lawyer to do something for you in regard to law, you're paying a price and you want good advice, then you should be following it. Same with the broker. If you're asking us, we will give you our best case scenario for you, you know, and the recommendation, you know, you should be comfortable following it, not just relying on it. Ask questions, all of that. You know, with the cattle, it's kind of been difficult this year. I mean, I had people do LRP policies this past spring for January delivery on feeders. And I mean, look where we're at. And the only good thing I have to say about that is, you know, once we put the LRP policy into effect, we bought call options. And so we wrote the market up, got a bunch of money ready to mark it up, and then you know what's happened since the last cattle feed report, everything dumps. So when the charts and open interest and all the things that we're looking at tell us it's time to dump the calls. So we take the money from the call options, we turn it around, put it into put options, and now we're collecting money on the way down. And basically, the producer still has that floor for January, and this is all speculative that he's doing with these options, but it's working. Sometimes it doesn't work, maybe only half of it worked with the call options home now. You know, but that's why it's called speculating, but you have to be comfortable with what you speculate. You know, you don't wanna blow the whole boat on betting it's gonna go one way or another. You know, if you're gonna do something, you know, make it later in, so that you're not committing to, you know, put all your eggs in one basket, unless is what I'm trying to say, but the marketing side of it, crops, you know, row crops, that's kind of an easy one because, you know, we do recommendations on a percentage basis. This is what you should do cash, this is what you should do, you know, as far as hedging, if you're comfortable. Based on time of year, what's going on, you know, all those things I talked about. And then as we have updates, then we inform you all, okay, it's time to do 10% more. You know, you like your races. There's a lot to do with that too, right? Okay, so one other thing that we have available is LRP insurance. Who's participated in LRP? Okay, so LRP's been around for a while, but they revised it a little bit a couple years ago. The government never participated in paying premiums, helping to pay premiums. Now they do. That makes it a little bit more favorable for a producer, maybe who, you know, wants to hedge feeders that they're going to deliver in August of next year. If you go to the board, if you're going to do a put option, it's going to cost you anywhere from like $7 to $12, depending on what level you're looking at. Well, the LRP program, that option, it kind of runs in relation to that price kind of runs in relation to a production, but the government picks up part of it. But there's some caveats about the LRP, and if you're willing to work with them, then it's a good deal. But there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind, and that could be something that would tell a producer I can't or I won't participate in that. It's based on how many head you have. There's no minimum. You can do 1 head of cattle all the way up to the crop year max. It's based on your sale weights. New prices are published by RNA daily. So if you haven't done anything and they publish it today, you like their price, you can lock it in. You need to have an AD 1026 conservation form filed in the same name as the cattle ownership on the property that you're going to be having them on. So if you have a piece of property that's registered to XYZ company on an AD 1026, and Joe Smith owns the cattle and he's putting it on there, when you take out that LRP policy, you're going to check FSA files and you're going to see that there's 2 names. And you can always go back and you can put in an additional AB 1026 for that property in Joe Smith's name. You could have 2 because the names have to match. The LRP policy and AB 1026, they have to match. And if you have to do any maneuvering with that, you have to make sure that it all falls into place before your contract ends. Otherwise, the government will not pay your subsidy. They won't pay that part of the premium that you're counting on, and the reason you took what you know.
What is that AB 1026?
It's a conservation form.
And you do have those claims unless you had any changes made to the property. Usually we don't have to update it, but the company can be issued them.
Are you at this one? As a broker who before I dealt with LRP insurance, I I do nothing on crop insurance, I do nothing on livestock insurance, so I have no idea about any of these. And so there were a few speed bumps that we went through, but, yeah, the 80-10-26, very important. It's a one-time application, one and done. You know, you can fill out the application now, and if they're still running this program 5 years from now, put in your first contract, you're gonna be good. One thing I will say is when you fill out the application, if you're married, you have to have your information and your husband's information, because they consider it joint property. And if you try to file it without it, it's gonna come up and then say records getting married, and then you take the application. If you have an entity owns the cattle, then you have to have the social security numbers, birth dates of everybody who's involved in a percentage basis. When you have, that has to be listed on the application as well. They don't all have to sign it, but we have to have all that information. Just the ownership. The ownership, yes. You cannot cancel an LRP policy, but you can transfer it. So person A has the policy and sells his cattle to person B before the policy expires. If person B is LRP registered, then it just transfers it. And if it were me, I would be looking at the price of the cattle because that's an asset, right? That's an asset for the cattle. So you can do that. You can't cancel it. You cannot sell the cattle until 60 days before the contract expires. They do have exception for what if I run out of water? What if there's drought and I can't feed them? They have exception for that. But right now, you cannot sell the cattle in that until that 60-day window before the expiration. So if I have a policy that's going to expire at the end of December, I can't sell this cattle until November 1st or after. Otherwise, the policy is no good, but I still have to pay premium. And you'd really be kicking yourself if that policy ended up the other bucket full of money. And you can't get your hands on it because you violated the contract details. Premiums are due after the contract expires. Once the contract expires, then they'll do all the pluses and minuses. If you owe money because you're not paying indemnity and they take it out with that, then they'll send you an invoice. And then you have like 30 days to pay the invoice. So it usually is like a 60-day window after the policy expires. If you don't pay within that 30 days, you're going to add interest. If you're doing indemnity because the price went down pretty good, if you owe a premium, they're going to take it out of that and then issue you a check. If the market's gone up, if you're not getting any money, you're only getting a portion of it, then you're going to plus or minus that on what you owe, and they'll send you your next bill.
And Dawn,
Yes.
is that LRP, I'm familiar with that AB 1026. Is it an appropriate product for a producer that puts cattle out on the gain or like is not the owner of the ground, like he pasture the cattle?
Mm-hmm.
Can that work with that AB 10?
He's not the owner of
the ground. So like a farmer doesn't own the ground, but
Right.
leases it, puts the cattle out on the gain. Can they still be eligible for that? I don't understand that 2016. And we've only used it in times where we've owned ground, so that's how that's.
That's the only experience that I have. Any of the producers I have dealt with have owned the property. They have had it in, you know, like a family person's name, and then they go in with a brother-in-law name. You know, then they have to redo the AB 1026 in their way, or maybe it's an entity, you know, same deal. So I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, So as long as you as a producer, if you're, you know, the kind of a college educator, you have your folder at a point. Whether Government settle on basement, you can let your own rent, you can create pasture, you know, you can have 6 different entities going on. So as long as you're up to date, and I say, we're not gonna ask you where it's for.
Well, and so I have a client in Indiana that doesn't own any of the ground. The same guy, some guys out that has the dairy calves, he grows them out, and they're always at somebody else's facility. So I don't know if it.
So this is the DRP.
Yeah,
LRP, okay,
because they're Grand Cross,
okay.
so it still must be,
They've got DRP for dairy, dairy products.
yeah.
You know, they've got the LRP for swine. As well, ramen. There's all different varieties of it, so. Would that answer your question, Valerie?
Yes, thank you.
Well, it was really commercially pretty important for these. Okay, I've got a real time example for you, so we'll go through that. I will say, even with put options, or with this LRP deal, you know, think of it as like house insurance. My premium to cover my house for a year is gonna be, less than if I covered for 2 years. So the same thing with the LRP and put options, you've got time value, and then you've got intrinsic value. And the time value, you know, in a put option, you'll never get that back. You don't get it back with the LRP, basically, you're just paying to protect for that amount of time.
But if you put them in a feedlot, you don't own the feedlot, that's okay, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing we have, another tool that StoneX has, it's called StoneX Commodity Solutions. And this is for somebody who is storing grain, or maybe you want to price next year's crop, but you haven't planted it. Maybe you haven't taken your crop to the elevator yet, it's still in the field, and you want to price it. It's for everybody. You set your price, you set your basis, you set your delivery point, just like you always do. The thing is that you can utilize futures, options, and swaps, which is an over-the-counter OTC market. You can utilize all 3 of those and not have a margin call. You don't have to have your losses made up in the account. These are separate from a futures account. You have to fill out a different application. It's kind of getting like a proof for a loan. Okay, and basically you're pledging the officials to StoneX. And they're doing all the financing. If your position goes, you know, $10,000 better because the market's gone higher and you're hedged in short position. StoneX is making those margin calls for them. You tell them how you want to price, because there's all different kinds of strategies they can use. They can use a flat futures. I want to sell my corn at $6. When the market gets to $6, sell me a futures contract. That can be the only thing you do when you can. You can also sell futures. You can sell a call on top to lock in prices higher. That obligates you to double your bushels. There's all different kinds of ways to do it. But basically, StoneX finances you. You tell them all those specifics. When you deliver to the elevator of your choice, the elevator knows that it's with the StoneX contract. The money gets funneled through StoneX, and the plus or minus comes out the backside to you. And again, depending on what time you want to finance them, you want to finance crop that's coming in 6 months. Do you want to finance next year's crop? Do you want to go 2 years out? We can do that as well. Though the fee that you'll pay is basically for the use of money, if you want to call it that, for a margin call your account. And everything comes out the backside. And you know all of these fees and what it will cost you before you get involved. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. I've got producers who like this because they just don't want to deal with margin costs. And they have, bushels in storage, and they should have sold it then, but they didn't do that. So if there's a chance I can sell it at a higher price, I want to do that. But if it gets to that price, I'm thinking it might go even higher. And I don't want to do it for margins. Everybody, the nice thing about hedging is it's not a one size fits all. There's something for the very conservative person. And there's something for the gunslinger. Whatever your pick your poison, as they say, right? But it's all about your comfort level. And if you're starting out very conservative, you can graduate if you want to, or you can stay where you're at. It just depends on your goals, your capital. Your capital that you're working with is different than your capital, your goals are different than your goals. I mean, it can be customized to what you need according to what makes you feel comfortable. And this is how it is in the office, just about every day. Could be morning or it could be night. I do night training. You have to take advantage of the opportunities when they come, and sometimes that's 9 o'clock at night. It's a good thing my dogs are okay with it because mom's got to make a living, right? And we do this too in the house. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? We do this for the what ifs. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the next time BSC is going to come out from nowhere. We don't know when's the next time, there's going to be a pandemic. Thank God we're past it, and hopefully we never have to deal with this stupid stuff again. But it's for the what ifs. And that's what you want to protect against. You drive your car with insurance because you don't know if Joe Smith's going to run the red light and smash your car. It's the what ifs. So this is, I took these charts probably about 10:30 this morning, right before I sent this over to Dee.
I just asked our insurance agent about her LRP question.
Yeah.
And she said, absolutely, you can take out LRP if you can have it on game. If someone has ownership expensive cattle, but the person who owns the cattle has to do the 8120 or 1026 at everything.
Yeah.
So, and she had a few other words we saw.
So even though you don't own the property, then you can still have somebody file.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think that's a wise choice because otherwise something like moving around that she. Okay, so December live cattle. As you can see, over to the right-hand side, that gap that we have there in the chart, and that big down move, can anyone guess what day that was? Just happened recently. So, cattle on feed report. Yeah, that's what happened with the cattle on feed report. And so, the very long line that has the gap above it, if you notice the one next to it, it has a little slight down, okay, and then it closed higher for the day. That's what we call a reversal on the chart. So as a technician, as a chart technician, you look at that thing and you say, well, you know what, 99% of the time the gaps are closed. But there's no time period on it. I can't tell you if it's going to be today, next week, next month, or next year, because you've got continuation charts that go on for years. And so, but that would have been like a signal to somebody, okay, we may be on the way up again. So what happened? We ended up going higher. We filled the gap. As you can see, we traded up to the top of the gap. And then what happened? The last 2 days we had downwards. And so now everybody's thinking, okay, it's kind of what's going to happen here. Packer margins are in the red right now. But we've got the tightest supply of cattle that we've had at this time. Those were all point to bullish factors with box peak values rising higher. Well, we've kind of been coming off of it, okay? So this big bull picture that we've been carrying in our minds up until that day, with the big downside, that big bull picture, everybody's kind of rethinking it now. And you get the top of the recession. And is, you know, Mrs. America, when she goes to buy her steaks, is she gonna pick, you know, the ones that cost $20 a steak now? Or is she, and is it $20 a steak now, or is it 25? Or is she gonna go for the ground beef, you know, that's still cost her like $8 when it didn't cost that last year? So, you know, these are the reasons that we hedge, basically. I mean, anybody could have looked at that chart. And before that big down day, I mean, we kept bouncing off that level, kept bouncing. Well, the more times you bounce, it's gonna go in one direction or the other. And we see what happens. And those are the days that you want to protect yourself from. Because over a 2-day period, there's a ton of money lost. There's like $15 lost in the market over a 2-day period. Because the limits on trading, you know, they could go to $5, but then after the $5, it goes to like $7.50. And then the next day, it would go to like $8.75. I mean, you know, that's a lot to incur over a very short period of time. So this is based on what was going on this morning. So in December live cattle, if you had a futures price of 182.85, your initial margin just to hold a short futures position is 2337.50. So if you put up $5,000, 2337.50 of that, it's like it's not even there. They're putting that in your safety deposit box. For every dollar price move, it's not 500, it's 400. I apologize for that. $400. So if the market moves against you, $2, you're out $800 on the first day. If the market moves against you, $2. So of your $5,000, you've used up $3137.50 on the first day. If the market moves against you, $2. And if you have a couple more days of that, then I'm the person who gets on the phone and says, "Good morning, did you have your coffee yet? It's a beautiful day. I need $5,000, thank you." You don't want to get those phone calls. Some people don't mind it. The feedlots don't mind it. The big cattle producers don't mind it because in the big picture, they know that they're going to be plus or minus anyway. And if their pockets run deep, they don't even mind even that much more. But the conservative person, if they went to using options, a 182 put based on a 182.85 market for December, the cost would be $1.65 a hundredweight or $660. A lot cheaper. And if the market does move against you $2, then your put option is probably going to be worth 85 cents. Depends on what's going on in the movement against you. If it's a really volatile day, the more volatility you see in the market, the more it pumps up the value of options. So because, you know, let's say we don't have a real volatile day and everything's just kind of moving along. Your 182 put option would cost you about $65 today. Well, maybe tomorrow when we get a big limit move and things are going crazy, at that same price level, maybe instead of $1.65, it may cost you $1.85 or $1.95 because you've got more volatility wrapped up in your option because of the market action. There's no margin on the options. So you're protected for $660. Let the thing go to $175. Let it go to 0. You're protected. And if you take it to expiration then that's when you get dollar for dollar. So December options, they're gonna, let's see, they're gonna expire the end of November. December options will, or the first week of December, they'll expire the first week of December. So we're at 182.85 right now. By the first week of December expiration, that option expires, and we're at 170. Then you get $12 in your pocket, less the 165 cost. Now, if the market goes against you, then hopefully you're selling your cattle for a higher price, based on higher price. But of course, then we have to do the year basis and all that other. And I deal with people in Iowa, Montana, Idaho on cattle, so every region, Oklahoma, everybody's basis is different. So, you know, when I'm trying to advise them, I always make it a point, you have to look at what your basis is. Is this a good thing? Do you want to do futures? It just depends on how the dollars are looking, and do you want, can you sleep at night if you have futures? Okay, so March feeders, there's that gap again. Those cattle on feed reports can really do wonders. And if you see over to the left-hand side, we've got another gap from way back. Well, look what happened. We still haven't filled the two gaps yet, have we? Because it gapped through the gap. If you want to put it that way, that's something you don't see very often. So that price level, okay, that price level is going to be a big deal to watch. As you can see, we took it up on the right hand side. We took it up yesterday or on Friday, and then we had the downside today. Friday feeders were off big time as well. We're looking to fill that gap that's just above us, but the tops on those lines, you can see they're all coming in the same price. So that's kind of what we call resistance. So we're looking to get above that, fill the gap, and then hopefully that'll take us higher. But a lot of times it'll turn right back around. So, you know, that might be a good spot to do a put option. Because again, if the market does go higher, you can always raise your floor. And it doesn't cost you as much as if you get futures on. You have to like teach you a price. Always leave your top side open. So on the March feeder hedge, we're talking about time value. Futures are 241.47. Initial margin is almost $4 grand. The price move is $1, $500. So if you bought a 240 put, your cost would be $7.25, $100. This might be a good time to look into LRP. Because the LRP policy is going to be in the same neighborhood for the same time period, but the government's probably going to pick up about $1.50 of that. Or what you could do is you could do what we call a put spread. With about a 240 put, and you could sell a 230 put underneath, and you've got a $10 protection margin. And that may cost you maybe $3 instead of $7.25. The only thing is that if the market moves, you're not going to get as much bang for your buck because you've got one position working against the other. But at expiration, you would be protected with like $10. We're hoping that it goes a lot higher than that. And then you don't care about the $3 at that point. You care, but you don't care because you're hoping that the market's like $5 or $10 higher. So of course, as a cattle producer, one producer, you gotta watch the corn market. And we were trading sideways for the longest time, had a bump up with the latest USDA report. And now we're just kind of been grinding lower. Our range has been anywhere between like 470 and $5. And I think we're gonna stay in that range until we continue to get more updates on what this year's harvest is. And if we can't get definitive numbers in the near term, then we're gonna have to wait till the official numbers come out in January when the USDA releases them. And even then, you'll probably have some naysayers saying, "That's not right. Yeah, you more than that. My neighbor says he did this. And I know a guy in Minneapolis that did this." But it's whatever the government puts out is gonna have the most weight on report day. Traders kind of dissect things and make up their own mind and then get off to trading meetings, so. July 2024, Kansas City wheat. Oh, those good old days, not so good days for the Black Sea region. But good days for US producer trying to price. Now, what if you have that highest price? What if you did that in some sort of strategy? What if you did that last year or 2 years ago when all this started happening? That's what you can do with those OTC accounts. Without margin, without the phone calls, all of that. So, you could go out a year or two and lock in prices. Kansas City wheat, what are we looking at now? We're looking at, we've got problems in Australia. They've had a bumper crop year after having such drought for a long time. Now we've got El Nino that's affecting the southern hemisphere, so we've got places like Argentina and Australia starting to sweat again. The biggest problem in the whole wheat deal is Russia. They are putting out massive quantities of wheat at discount prices. And unless a global buyer wants specific proteins or quality, they're going to be apt to go to Russia or these, Ukraine, the lesser price countries, as opposed to coming to the US, especially on days when our dollar index is rising higher. Now, we've had quite a drop in the KC wheat, especially like over the last week. Well, what did that do? Hopefully, we got some more export business. And the way we know if we did is USDA puts out export sales reports every Thursday to tell us what happened the week before. Then on Mondays, we find out from USDA how much of that product actually shipped. USDA told us today that we had over 2 million metric tons of soybeans shipped last week. Well, a month ago, there's nothing going on. And everybody's looking like soybeans that they had left over. Mississippi was running low on water. Water levels were low in the Panama Canal. It's like, how do you get this stuff out? They were shipping wheat to the Pacific Northwest to ship to China. What's the freight on that? Montana's a big wheat producing state. My partner up there said that they were shipping a lot over to Washington to ship out. So it just, there's a lot of things that affect what's going on. All of a sudden their basis really looked good in Montana when everybody else couldn't ship. So you just gotta keep track of that. Who produces cotton here? I'm sorry. Telling you, I work with a lot of cotton producers, and these last 2 years have probably been the most frustrating for cotton producers. I think that as far as the grower goes anyway, we know what the situation that we have. We know what is going on in the southeast states. This drought thing is just moving east. Problem is that we've got this huge recession thing gradually hanging over our heads. Demand is off. Export sales reports are telling us demand is off a lot. it's like the last week, we sold 400,000 bales. And China was the biggest buyer. Well, woo-hoo, because the week before that, I think it was like 46,000. So there's no consistency, there's no solid consistency. We're down we're gonna be in the mid-70s pretty soon. We're around 77 something as of today's close. You know, nobody thought we would break below 85. Like 6 weeks ago. And it just keeps going lower. I'm hoping that we've got a WASDE report coming out on Thursday. I'm hoping that we get some kind of accurate reflection on supply and demand. It's the demand side that's killing us. China, they usually sell out their reserves when they have them, the reserve sales. Their reserve sales last week is still at 48%. Their prices were down today. Indian prices were down today. And, you know, we're not going to rally if we see our global partners going lower. So again, what happens over there happens in our backyard. People are just not buying. Textile mills are not buying up like they should be in this time of year. If you think about it, as far as retail sales, textiles, and all that other, you know, clothing stores, all of that, they're buying their products at least a year or two in advance for what they need. That's why everything got jazzed up with COVID, because nobody was out in stores buying it. So we're kind of feeling the effects of the COVID thing. You know, it's like we've got the pendulum, it goes all the way to one side, then it goes all the way to the other. Now we're trying to find, you know, how do we work this thing in the middle? Higher interest rates, demand is down. I mean, there's a lot of stuff working against cotton, even though there are so many producers saying they had to call it adjusters. You know, and they've got less crop than what they thought they would, even with irrigating.
Don't you think it's the world market though?
Oh, it is a world market, definitely. But when China's our biggest buyer,
And China goes lower, it's still.
China's our biggest seller, but when if their textile mills are not buying and they're not selling up their reserves so that they could buy more to replenish it, that weighs on our prices. Now, 407,000 barrels last year, that's like astronomical. We're looking for 250 at least every year. We did that's so many. So you know, 407,000 came from, you know, I mean, someone like not turning something in. You know, there were 40 some the week before that, 80 some the week before that. I mean, they've been low numbers consistently. And then all of a sudden bang. So, you know, that's what I'm saying, the volatility, the uncertainty. On a number like 407,000, we should have seen a rally happen. You should have seen a good rally happen, but it didn't happen. Every time we get upside happen, we end up going lower again. And now our ranges are going lower, yeah. So,
Well, the fundamentals of big cotton have been very screwed up because, I mean, I get farmers call me all the time and say exactly that, you know, why did when things get tight, the price drop? Is that a problem that's been going on the last 3 years?
it goes back to the demand. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, I think with USDA, you know, like not this August, but the August before, we had a lot of crop being taken out like in July. We can start happening in July. You know, they took out 800,000 babies in August. Well, then over September, October, November, they added it back in. You know, and so, you know, that's why everybody went out and bought options. You know, I had some people spend a good amount of money on all options because this thing's going there. My cotton buyer told me I need to load up my call options. You know, my thought in my head was, okay, he's financing that deal. You know, is your cotton buyer gonna reimburse you for that long decision? You know, some guys want to futures. You know, a lot of people got hurt last year in the economy, not only with the physical product, but thinking that the market is gonna go higher because the crop wasn't big. You know, I had one producer in particular, South Bay and Appling, he had an adjuster come through in July. And then September 15th, the adjuster came back. And he started to go through everything, he goes, oh, by the way, those acres that I took out in July, I forgot to have you sign a paper. So I had to turn them in. And I'm like, yeah, some of this now makes sense. How many other adjusters, you know, did that same thing, or, you know, you just never know. You just never know. So what you do know is that we've got tools to protect yourself because you don't know what's coming in. And the more time you spend educating yourself on it, the more comfortable you get with it, the more you're apt to use it. And the more you're going to be happy that you did. There's times you use it and there's times that you don't. Sometimes you use one strategy, sometimes you use a different strategy against it. But that's what you have a broker for. You know, if you're working with a broker currently, my whole deal is promoting the industry and a good experience with the broker. You know, I've had people come to me, you haven't had that. You know, that's not a big thing. You know, there's certain obligations that a broker has to apply. And we're, you know, we're kept to a standard. And if you're not doing that for the clients, then you shouldn't be in business. You know, not to say you always make the right decision, we're trying to make the right decision, and we're trying to decipher as much as we can. But, you know, we do look at those positions every day, maybe, you know, talking to your clients, telling them, you know, with me, what I do is if I've got clients in a position and I think the market's gonna go a certain way, and I know that that person could enhance their position by doing a certain thing, we want to get with that person before the market gets there. Because if the market gets there and I haven't called you yet, 10 seconds later, the opportunity is out the window. So you call the person up and you say, hey, look, you know, we may get to this price level. If we do, give me another buck, I can give you another $4 on your floor. You want to do that? Is that a good deal for you? If you say yes, when I put an order in, work it until things. If it never gets filled, then we go to plan B. If it gets filled, then you're grateful that I called you and paid for the ending. So, you know, it's all about, you know, it's customer service. It should be customer service at the highest level because it's your money. And you have to, you know, I don't need to remind you that you need to be. But you should, you know, if you're working with somebody, they should be working for you, like above you, because the money, they'll go, the opportunities, they go, and it may not be there. If you want to know what's going on in markets every day, and you want some suggestions on what you can do or shouldn't do, this QR code will get you to my Market Talk newsletter. You don't have to pay for it. It's a free service that I give out just to promote the industry, educate. I've been writing it since 2005. As far as media goes, I don't know if y'all ever watch KBII here in Amarillo. I had a CAD program on at Friday mornings. It was called Big Country Event Report, and we used to go over markets and 4-H and all that other without really movie. But right now, if you tune in to Sirius XM on Monday afternoons at 4:30, I do a commodity wrap program. And it's not only bowling, you go over what's new, you go into the markets, what's happening that day, finding sort of thing. Also, there's a really good internet station. It's called allavenues.com. And, they have a station here in Amarillo. They're based in Florida, and it's all ag pollinated. And I do a daily programming there, and it's basically, similar to the Market Top newsletter, giving the prices of commodities and what's happening in the market. What is it? It's, rural radio. They're great guys, The nice thing I like about that station and about all that news is the people who do the interviewing, they know markets, they know the questions to ask. You know, their opinion, and so it always makes for great interviews when you're looking to see like. So that's the Market Talk newsletter. You'll get to a page for Stone next to the last piece of what they call market intelligence page. And then from there, we set up the Market Talk newsletter. But that market intelligence has a bunch of stuff on here. It covers so many different kinds of markets. Like we've got an energy base, and they put out a newsletter for food. You know, we got a fertilizer desk, and they put out commentaries for fertilizer. You know, I've got colleagues that write in New Zealand. There's a bunch of stuff on their charts, all kinds of things. And that's my contact information. And if y'all have any questions, give me a shout, send me an email. I'm always up for talking with kids. So when I can, you count. It's not like
There's a cartoon called the Slides and Pearl, and the punchline is. I have a hard to get I'm so 50-50 that
well, and honestly, I mean, I have to credit like where I am today, with the people who invest in me. And, you know, I'm thankful that I was receptive to their teaching. I'm thankful I was receptive to being stretched and all of that, because, you know, 45 years ago, 17-year-old girl, don't do the math. 17-year-old girl, you know, like Rebecca Sunnybrook Farm, literally, you know, going into the commodity. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Trading Places movie. Okay, that's real. They don't do it anymore, but that's real. And it's a lot more open in a lot of different ways. And so to be thrown into that, you know, but with that, I will say my boss, his peers, all those people who, you know, I felt like I was out of the league with, they all invested in me, and they're all on the leases. And, you know, thank God I was receptive to that, you know, because, you know, shoot, it wasn't God's plan that I end up on Broadway and, you know, sit in the alley for 3 days waiting for the car to come up, and, you know, I don't have that kind of background. I will tell you though, my daughter was a dancer. She did end up connected to New York, but she so I lived through it. So, yeah, I still teach these classes. She has a studio now. Yeah, so I get the best of both worlds. And I really appreciate the asking me to come out. I really enjoy visiting with producers, and this is very fun for me. I hope I was able to throw a few things out there, like heard some questions or so. Thank you all again. Something I want to say, we are having a StoneX dinner meeting during the function. And it's going to be at Cascade Court on the Wednesday at function at 6:30. And if you want to come, for dinner, drinks, it's on the house, and we'll have myself and two of my colleagues. They're going to be coming in remote. And we're going to talk about cattle specifics. We're going to talk about interest rates. We're going to talk fertilizer, and it's going to be a great time. We've done it like the last 3 years, They usually have like 60, 70 people come in. So you all are invited. I would love to see you there. Last week,
Is that the same group with John Dillon?
No, John Miller, this, so he's the separate entity. Yeah.
My husband was there last year.
Oh, was it? Yeah, okay.
That's great. Prime rib, unlimited drinks. But yeah,
It was,
and a lot of good information.
yeah,
So,
it's great. It's a great time.
Some of my favorite places to go.
And if y'all have any groups, you know, that might want us to come and speak at, we do that as well. We had a feedlot that had us come out in August and they had their clients come in and, you know, we did something specific to their bleach and everything, so. Yeah, we enjoy the opportunities, we enjoy it all.
Yeah. Any other questions for Donna?
The farm show. Last week or two.
So last week of November. I think it's like that Tuesday through that Thursday. I'm so glad that it's February. No, it's November.
Where's that? Here?
It's at the Emerald Farm and Ranch, so it's good that you go. Yeah, I have it in my calendar, so.
We gotta go from that. Yeah, the county's just.
And while I'm setting up, Karen wants to talk for just a second about another event that we have coming up. It's not related to me, but it is for a really neat group, Panhandle Agri Women. So.
So, I belong. We are with, associated with Panhandle, Texas Agri Women. So we really try to promote with education and these and products. We have lots of amazing women who can help you out with everything, and we have ladies who are in the private industry, who are in insurance, or at NRCS. We have dairy people. So there's a little bit of everything, and everybody kind of eating and rhythm, they have their expertise. So you get to meet a wide gamut of ladies, and we're really trying to promote and build the group. So then apparently kind of gave them a setback. Unfortunately, there were a large number of ladies. We're fairly new to it, so it's family.
Is there group doing some organization? So there's some ladies that come over from.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one in Lubbock, there's one up here. I can't think of one, because I have one for me to be planned.
So, there, we have, our social coming up this coming Thursday, the 16th. So it will be a catered event, and it'll be at our house out in Bushland, and ladies and friends will come out and have an experience and get to meet some of the ladies and check things out, and, you know, and just kind of see, you know, how they can help. We do, like I said, with education, so we do, we do scholarships, we do, like education boxes, like agri classroom kind of a deal. They did it last year, we took that 5 to different schools, to teachers, and they have all the material we need. We do a big, dinner once a year, fundraiser, a farm to table. This year, Amtech, which again, we're new to region. Amtech, their culinary arts division, did all the cooking. Everything was donated, and we raised $37,000. So we are the largest grossing Texas Agri in the state of Texas, and we're recognized out of the state. So
So if they want to attend social response, you have a class, or?
yes.
I know y'all been sitting here for a while, so why don't we take about a 5 to 7 break, go to the bathroom, the drink, whatever you need to do, and then mine should take more than half an hour. And then we'll wrap up with evaluation of the future and certificates and all that kind of stuff.
I'm like,
You take it flat.
So I forgot. Well, get trained before we come for.
What is it people reading? What's that?
He's out and professor. Favorite job. Yeah.
From this week now, they're not even finished up. It's just like all of this, but it's a lot of it now. This study not. It's like curve, I feel proud of this. And when we had child conference, so our camera keeps, it's not this for any.
Got all of us go to the cemetery, and then the passport didn't come in, should be all together without that.
Yes. So we're gonna go. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
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 It's gonna pass. Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I was looking at the classes to better, but I had parties and.
Yeah, you know what I thought farm rating because that's the semester I had. I just COVID and so people. Yeah. I'm just gonna talk about my outlook, so Mark, well, about us, sure, our rating is backing on them. And then I should talk about Facebook. So. You know, I don't know those Zeus problems. You get a student that because we're just doing the autistic, she's stressed, so I'm all very more policy job. And so maybe if you do it, actually, I don't know, so I can't explain that. Just a dodge, like, you know, take off her and I've got like shoes for meetings, it's necessary, I'm sure how it sits on here, it's colliders. So it's very easy, been pretty hard to stay. I know that's going so bad. Just so. I can do Yeah. Yeah. But when I'm coding, so you could post on classes, but I can't. You know, Aaron doesn't write on this, which will child starting and so he's. Anyways, it's not as much. So I'm figuring that out. And I see something. I'm just somebody else's mom in the meeting. My goodness. Those pain, those easy. See what it costs. That's very just. We'll see it if it's. This, so now, I think I need cow. Which you what? If you see, I see. It's not like stressful. Okay, I will. So we don't. Okay, I'm taking all these. Take a couple of them. Okay, I'm gonna. What do you all take unless I have to? But they do it, she'll still keep this. So you still be taking. Oh. Snuggling, well, mostly taking this other feet, you know. Yeah. Yeah, StoneX has some goodies over here, so if y'all wanna get yourself a cow or a pin or whatever. Yeah, I had a good cow. I thought they were stressful, but she said they're in that. It's happening a lot. Take it. Yeah.
Let's tell you about our programs. Take one for 10. These books are the greatest. It's like a school workbook. It has all the high professor art. The answers from the so you don't have to.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and sit back down so we can wrap up.
Thank you. Take a Please put it.
You're too much. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to do, I'm just.
And I tell me, like, you see that, you're thinking what you want. We come here, you're trying to find why.
You know, in my book, it takes a special person to market to do futures and options and play the markets. I am not that person. So just like, don't call me if it wants specifics for crop insurance. Don't call me if you want me to tell you if you need to buy it, put her a call. So please. Well, Steve Amison, he was the other man in the back. I should introduce Steve, he's gone now. Steve was my mentor. Those of y'all that know Steve, he was a phenomenal mentor. He was not Steve has no filter. And so
It's not a Corbin fuzzy.
no. If you're being a dumbass, he will say, well, that's a dumbass thing to say, even if you're 25 years old. But he was a phenomenal mentor. He loved to help us play with commodity markets. So if a farmer called and said, hey, I got 2,000 bushels of wheat, what do you think I should do with it? He'd do it. And I do not want that kind of responsibility. So yeah, talk to Donna, talk to somebody else. But to me, that's almost as much risk as going to Broadway, is playing around with the futures and options markets. But I know that you're a lot more experienced than I am. So I can tell you though, that those glossy reports, they can really jack up the markets immediately. And so one of my best and worst weeks in Panhandle is the second week in January. I'll do market outlooks at the Pioneer meetings. And the glossy report comes out like what police are doing, right? Or 11. So a lot of times on that day, I will mark out and I will give one market outlook at 10 to 11. They will release reports and they see those stupid cell phones. The farmers know before I do now. And so by the time I'm done talking, I'm already wrong. And then I've got to give them again that. And so you can't have a huge impact in the market. You have to really pay attention. So, all right. So what I'm going to talk to y'all today about, I got thinking, this is the last presentation of the whole conference. This is what I talk about. Like Jason said, I'm very good at telling old white men about what's going to happen with the markets. We've already had that covered. I do a lot of farm policy talks. We've already had that covered. So it's something that would be different. So what I'm going to cover today is tools for ag-risk management. Just some of the websites that I've used the most when I'm being an ag economist and that I recommend most often to my farmers and ranchers. It's not one of my most exciting presentations. Steve taught me how to be a great, I'm not pointing things out anymore, how to be an interactive presenter, because we know this is for you guys. I mean, we know it is. And my least favorite time you put on is they give everybody a big chicken fried steak, turn on lights and say, talk about market outlooks now. You can imagine the naps that go on when I talk about that topic. So I try to be as interactive as possible. I cannot put as many bad words on my slides as Steve puts on his slides and still have a job. But I'm going to start out at least making fun of the Aggies, and then we'll just go on from there. I went to Texas Tech, been working for AM for 23 years. But this actually came from Mark Welch. He's our great marketing guy. He is also a Red Raider. So we try to be subtle and make sure that this slide makes every presentation. So far, 5 years in, I've managed to work it in. Sometimes it's at the front, a lot of times it's mixed in somewhere. Right. So I'll start, because like I said, I want to do a relatively quick presentation. Talk about some of my favorite resources in risk management. A lot of those y'all can get from the AgEco website, and this will be in your handout. It's just agecoextension.tamu.edu. And under that resources tab, a lot of the speakers that you've already heard from, their links are in that tab. You know, Tiffany talked about ag law, her ag law blog you can get from that tab. Bart talked about farm policy. You can find all his farm policy information in the station aids at that farm policy tab. Donna just did a market outlook. Her market talk newsletter is phenomenal. I use it all the time before I'm going to present. We have some marketing experts within A&M too. Mark Welch does grain and feed grain marketing, or wheat and feed grains. John Robinson does cotton. Those are all under this market out. And they will go in, Donna does hers daily for the most part. These guys will do it every 1 to 2 weeks. But if you want a really good summary of what's going to the markets, you can sign up for the free newsletters, or you can always access it online. Okay, but what I'm going to start with is just talk a little bit about the crop and livestock budgets. So if I were to click on that, that's going to take you to the Texas crop and livestock budget page. You can either choose to do it by your district or by the commodity. If you don't know what district you're in, we'll have a map for you. And you just select where you live. I think most people around here are either District 1, which is my area, or District 2, which is the South Plains. You click on that, and December to January, depending on who the economist is, we're gonna come up with what we consider to be our best estimates about what we think crop and livestock is gonna be doing for the next calendar year. So I do need to teach y'all a very important term, though. This is something that I'm trying to teach all my producers, in addition to my, monkey with the hat. You know what a ELAG is? So basically, you should know, but I think I've taught somebody else's classes. But every economist is great at two different things. We do WAGs and ELAGs. WAGs are wild ass guesses, ELAGs are educated wild guesses. So we're sitting down and we are talking about what we think is gonna happen with crop and livestock markets over the next 12 months. We're doing ELAGs. They're our best educated guesses at the time. We're not always right, but at least that gives you a good place to start. What we do is we'll go in, we'll look at the markets. I'll probably call Donna, talk to other economists. We'll try to make our best guess on what we think prices are gonna do. We'll also look at the fertilizer markets, the chemical markets, the irrigation markets, interest rate markets, and we'll make our best EWAGs on what we think expenses. And based on all that information, we will publish some budgets. They work great. A lot of bakers use it. I know ladies use it. They always told me about it. When you're renewing your operating note, you gotta have some kind of cash flow statement, some kind of income statement. You can always pull up our crop budgets and install it up.
Did you ever go back and compare what you estimated to what's actual?
Depends on the year. I mean, the year before we underestimated prices because they went ballistic and we didn't see that happening. This year, I think we overestimated a lot of them. You can see we thought corn would be running about 646. It didn't quite hit that. Did not stay consistently that high all the time. I think we were closer with our expenses this year. Last year in 2022, we did not know fertilizer was going to go to $1,100 to $1,400 a ton. But we increased. We definitely increased our last year like double what we should have bothered with. So, and Steve will say he's probably right. We're probably worse than some of the other crops just because especially the volatility with Russia and all that kind of stuff. It's just a guess, but some years are better than others. 2 years ago was a train wreck. This year I think we got a little bit closer. Okay, so we have our crop budgets, and like I said, these are for every district in Texas. We also have our livestock budgets. They're going to be on there as well. Like these quite as well, just because I think they value like parts of the head, and it's just confusing the way they quantify it all. I mean, it's in there, it's good data. If you have trouble interpreting it, give me a call. But we also do have our projected livestock expenses in terms of feed, vet medicine, fuel and lube, interest rates. So if you need a livestock budget, we do have those included as well. I think we have cow cattle, winter stockler, and some. All right. So that's kind of our main crop budgets. Like I said, they're way out of date at this point. We should have new ones in. I think they try to have them all posted by February 1st. I will try to get mine done before Christmas. Awesome.
Okay, are they done by regions then?
They are done by region. So like I will be in charge of District 1, which is Texas Panhandle. Will and Andrew, our economists down in Lubbock, they will be in charge of the South Plains. So we will get them all done. When I say February 1st, I'll tell you my open and listen to the recording. But we've got new people in charge of College Station, and so they are not as quick about posting the budgets as the last guy that retired was. And so whereas normally we have them up by December 1st of January, almost the second I send them, they'd be on the website. Now you just hope they show up in the board box. So even though I will try to have my budgets done by December 1st of January, it may be in the January 1st February before they show up on the website. And Jackie Smith, he was a economist in Lubbock for a long time. Steve was always one of the first ones to get his turned in. Jackie was the absolute dead one. So depending on how motivated the economist is and how much of a procrastinator they are, that will also impact time. But somewhere in that December phase. So. But one of the things that we ran into is we have these great crop budgets, but our budgets for 22 counties in the Texas Panhandle. And you can't tell me a corn budget up in Dalhart or maybe Lipscomb that has decent water is going to be the same as a corn budget down in DeSmith County or Hereford that barely has any water at all. So essentially, we just make it as close and generic as possible for the entire Panhandle region. But we got talking that we could do better. So we still have those budgets every year, but we also wanted to create some kind of decision aid that would make those budgets more interactive. So under the resources tab, under decision aids, I'm gonna talk about the crop profit analyzer first, and then we also have a cattle decision aid about it. So the crop profitability analyzer basically is we take our Texas Panhandle spreadsheets and we put them into an interactive Excel file. So then you have our numbers to start with, and then you can go in and you can put in your own yields and your own prices and your own costs and tweak our budgets to the point that it makes more sense for your operation. And we added another component in District 1 that allows you to put in all your different water parameters and show you under those parameters what is your optimal crop mix for that. Okay, so the crop profitability analyzer, I know it's not really easy to see. First thing you got to do is we'll have every single budget preloaded. You just select the budgets that are relevant to your operation. This example, I think we got corn, silage, cotton, and sorghum for irrigated, and then dry land, dry cotton, dry sorghum, and dry wheat. You can also select whether or not part of your land is owned or leased, because we'll factor in crop share agreements as well. So once you selected that, then we'll go to our prices page. You know, maybe corn's not running 6.46 anymore. What did you say it's running right now, Donna? Around 5 corn price?
This evening, yes, well, I mean,
Okay, so maybe instead of that 6.46, I'm gonna put in my corn price for the year of 5.70. Or maybe cotton we had at 80, maybe we need to drop that down to 70. So you go in there and you put in your individual prices. And then you also put in your individual prices for fertilizer if they're different than what we projected, or interest rates. So the universal prices sheet, these are the inputs and revenues that go across several different spreadsheets. You put all those in there on the prices page. And then we can go into the individual crop budgets. And that's where you put in the rates of your fertilizer or your yields, or maybe there's an expense that just relates to corn. You put all those in those crop budgets. So like in this scenario, maybe you can't get 225 bushel corn. Maybe you're in Smith County and you're lucky to get 175 bushel corn. You put that in there as your new quantity, it recalculates this budget. Or maybe you're up in Lipscomb where there's actually water still, so we should grow corn there until the last 5 years or so. You can put in 250 bushel corn. It'll recalculate the whole way. So between these individual budget sheets and these universal prices sheets, you can take our numbers that we start with and tailor them to your operation. The other part about this is that you can put in, if it's a crop share agreement, the default is a 1/3 and 2/3 crop share agreement where the landlord pays for fertilizer, chemical, and irrigation. But maybe you have an 80-20 where the landlord gets 20% and pays for nothing. Or a 4-3-4, as we're talking down in the Lubbock area, where the landlord gets 25% and maybe only pays fertilizer and chemicals, so just fertilizer. And so you can actually go in there, put in the landlord's share, and then it's going to show your total revenue, cost, and profit, and then the tenant share of that, and then the landlord share of that.
So anything in blue is where they can key in that.
Yeah, basically anything in blue is where you can key in data on this budget. If it's in green, you have to go to the prices page. And the reason we did that is because like corn herbicide, you probably need to be able to put in just a corn budget. But the cost per ton of fertilizer up here, that's probably gonna be about the same forever. It's just gonna be the rates. So rather than you have to go in and put in fertilizer cost per ton for every single budget, you had to put in a once that universal page and it goes to all the budgets. So the green are gonna be for the expenses and the prices that go across the board. If they're just gonna be relevant to one budget, then you'll go to that budget page and enter them in the blue sections. That makes sense? Okay. So once you get everything fit like you want it to, got your prices in, got your costs in, then we've got these different analysis sections. One is the break-even analysis page. It's gonna take your estimated yield and then tell you based on the cost that you entered, what your break-even price should be to cover your production expenses, and then also your total expenses. And not just for the producer, but also as a tenant or as a labor. So that's gonna automatically show you the break-even price. Really good when you market that crop. We're gonna put some yield variability around it. None of my farmers actually hit their projected yield. They're usually lower than that, because farmers are actually optimistic. But every once in a while, they will be higher. So we did put some sensitivity analysis around that. So that's in there. Another analysis page is we have your break-even yield page. So this shows you your break-even prices at different costs and yield levels. This one's going to show you your break-even yields at those different costs and a set price level. So maybe you need to know this price of corn's lower because it's from an earlier version, but maybe you know that as a producer, you have to make at least 218 bushel corn in order to break even. Or you know you have to get a price of 428 corn in order to break even. So bakers love this because you can actually go there and say, hey, I'm gonna market my crop. Here's my cash flow, my budget. Here's what my break evens are for my prices and my needs. So it goes a long way when you go to bake because it does a lot of knowledge. Completely interactive. I will make this at the same time that I make my budgets. And we have this tool available for District 1 and for District 2. It's not in any other projects. Basically, District 2 developed it. We decided we really liked it, and so we stole it. But we put the economists from District 2 on our committee, so therefore it's not stealing, it's sharing. But these are the only two that we have for this thing. We're doing a pretty big update in it right now with Private Programmer because Visual Basic Macros is what this is written in, no longer plays well with maps. And you can unlock those macros, but a lot of my farmers can't find the return key. And so if I ask them to take, multiple steps to make it where it's more interactive, that's. So we're working with making it more user friendly. This last year we had these security issues. But anyway, it will be up and ready to go hopefully by 1st of January. Okay, and then the last thing we do, and this is only available, I believe, for the District 1 budget. And to me, it's a very cool feature. Is we actually go in there and you can put in what is your gallons per minute on your individual well. So this operation gets about 500 ppm, that's marginal water. It's over 1 circle of irrigation. He plants in thirds. A lot of guys have said they plant in halves or quarters or thirds. So we wanted to be able to include that as well. And then based on these parameters, it's going to show what is the maximum amount of corn being planted. Well, if you got marginal water, they can't plant a whole 120 acres of corn. The way I understand, they can only plant 80 acres. And the rest of that would drop. But cotton requires less water, so they could plant 120 acres of cotton soil. So it kind of shows the maximum irrigated acres that they can plant under those water conditions to produce their acres. So based on all of that, they're going to run all these different acreage scenarios, multiply those by the estimated returns that you came up with, and that's going to show you what crop gives you the highest grossing outcome. So in this situation, if this farmer planted 120 acres of dryland cotton, I believe, no, I'm sorry, it was corn silage. Yeah, I was looking at it wrong. This situation, if the producer planted 80 acres of corn silage, because y'all know silage went for a buttload of money last year, and then planted his remaining 40 acres to dryland wheat, that is going to give him the highest return. And we highlight that so you can see what looks like the best for you. So very cool tool. It's not that hard to use once you get into it. Just takes our crop budgets and makes it interactive so you can have the overall.
Not long.
2 years ago, it's been around a while, so it's gonna be easy.
So we just need to tell Will that we want irrigation analysis for.
Oh, you stolen that from us, since we stole everything else from Jill, but I did kind of know on Andrew. Andrew is a new Jackie Smith, although he's much younger. And so anyway, they were on conference call with me last Friday. And they're harvesting for her items and all the other things, so I would think it would be hard for them to all do that, but yeah, I'll tell Will, you tell her.
I've never seen that, so it must not be on there.
It's fine, Wilson is a programmer and I'll look up, see how close they work, it's a long time since I've seen it, and that's the only cap. Right. And then, in terms of decision aid for beef cows. There's a lot of them out there, this is probably the one that I like the best, most of you all know the situation over the last couple of years. Been very, very dry, a lot of people have pulled their herds. And now that hopefully we'll have an immediate winter, start raining again, prices are good, cow prices are good. People are gonna start really wanting to rebuild their herds. But one thing that bit a lot of my guys in the butt back in 2011 during that drought is the prices were way up. Guys started buying the crap out of cows, not thinking that expensive cow may never pay for it. So I have farmers that are still paying for the cows who were dead for 5 years because they paid $3,500, $4,000 a day. And so what this does is allow you to see what is really the maximum amount of money that you can offer or pay for a mama cow, given today's market conditions, and still continue to break even and make money over the next 7 years, which we consider a lot for cow. So it's really easy. You just go in there, you put in your wean weight for your steers and heifers, called cow wean weight. What is your weaning percentage or calving rate? What is the going market prices? I ran this back a couple months ago, but they're still relatively close. And then your estimated cow operating costs per year. That's very much an EWAG. I just went in and put in a couple that I've seen recently. And then you say that the life of that cow is going to be for 7 years. You're going to finance it at 8% interest. And then it's going to show your estimated return for that cow every year. And then what is the maximum bid price you could pay for that cow? Which would be somewhere between probably $4,500 and $5,000 based on the example that I did. Yeah, and cow prices, they can very well be $1,000 over that. So it gives you a pretty good idea about what type of marketing and what you need to be looking for when you're replacing those cows. So I really like those 2 decision aids. Like I said, into that resources tab, there's also some great outlooks. There's cotton, feed grains, and wheat. Those are all updated regularly. Do not look at the livestock outlook tab. I love David Anderson. He's a phenomenal livestock marketer. I don't think he's updated that since 2018. So don't look at livestock. It's very, very out of date. But the other 3, the crop related ones, are updated pretty well.
Does he have a different outlet?
No, it's just David. So basically you email him and say, hey, what's going on in the markets. He honestly is in Southwest Farm Press a lot and that stuff. So if you Google David Anderson, TAMU, you can probably find a recent article. He's also really good at share slides. He does a lot of knowledge presentations. And so when I go to do a cow marketing outlook, because I have crops better than cattle, I will get David to see slides and on the field. So he is really good. He just doesn't do websites. All right, there's another program. This is one that I run. It's called Farm Assistance. It's basically financial and risk management assistance program. This allows us to do a lot of individualized one-on-one financial analysis for farmers and ranchers. Where basically you give me your financial production information, similar to what you would take to bank, and I'm going to combine your individual data with all the projections that we get out of ABM from the policy center. These are the same guys that do all the macroeconomic projections for the farm bill and for the US government that have all those representative farms that Mark talked about. So I'm going to take your data and I'm going to do some short-term and long-term simulations and projections for you using that data. It'll give you a really good idea about what your operation is like in the short term. So I was just to give you an example. I'll walk you through it real quick. This is what I did for a producer up in the Sherman County, Stratford area last year. You can go online and find a sample report if you want it. This is a big producer. He's got about 9,000 acres. Most of it's pivot irrigated. He's also got 300 head of cows. The base scenario, he plants about 1,400 acres of cotton, 400 of sorghum, 1,400 acres of corn, 400 of sorghum, and about 1,500, 1,600 And then these are his baseline financial assumptions, that's basically all his balance sheet information. So I need to know what his assets and his debt is, his cash, his family living. Depends on whether or not his life is modeled for the year, I've seen as high as like 100,000, so about 50,000. And depending on those, there's usually some kind of fight ensues, so that's what I'm starting out with. But anyway, it happens. And then also, all farm income, he gets about 150,000 in customer data for his dad. I also want to know crop costs, I need to know any of your overhead expenses, basically everything that you bring to the banker in terms of production and income statement and balance sheet. Okay, and then I also ask for yields and prices. And like I said, his per acre expenses. So once we get all that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna run 100 possible simulations for that individual farm. And we're in each simulation, we're gonna be doing a different set of prices and yields. And we're gonna be doing a different set of cutting rates and stocking. So we'll do all that together, we combine it with projections that we got Texas A&M. And then we're able to do a really good overall financial picture of that operation. So this is really what it looks like when we run 100 possible different outcomes. 5% of the time, his profitability was down here, which is barely breaking even. 5% of the time it was up here, which means he was making pretty good money. And then 50% of the time it was in this gray area, which is running somewhere between about what 300,000-400,000 all the way up to over $1 million. We do see the trend though that it does start to drop, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we think the commodity prices, commodity markets are going to drop. So they are. This was done at the beginning of last year. Okay. And then the difference between the best and worst case scenario is going to be the amount of risk in his operation. So we look at his profit graph, we look at his equity graph. Overall, that looks pretty good. We also want to look at his liquidity numbers. And this essentially charts his estimated cash position or working capital every year. And based on that, calculates the probability that he may have some refinancing. This guy had a whole lot of carryover operating debt and current debt. So even though he had a lot of equity, he had a relatively high probability of having some cash problems in the first year. And that's what that shows, about an 83% chance of having a negative working capital in the first year. That does give that over time. Okay, and then we also looked at the debt to asset ratio. And part of the reason the cash gets better is because he quits, buying some of these things. Which they actually do, but that's what we'll talk about. Okay, but that gives you a great idea about just the overall financial health, both short-term and long-term of an operation. But we could also evaluate different alternatives. And I did that for this guy. Last year he wanted to purchase one of his sections, 640 acres, but he didn't only want to purchase that new section, he wanted to completely refinance all his debt. At the time, it was very early in 2023 when interest rates didn't suck, so he could refinance all his debt for about 6% interest. Spread it out over 20 years, a lot of it was coming due, that probably the reason he was having so much trouble with his cash position. So we simulated that alternative for him. We looked at buying that new piece of land, refinancing all his current real estate debt. He did have to pay a $40,000 repayment penalty by taking that debt and refinancing it. And he also incorporated the cost of drilling 2 new wells since he's running out of water. So the entire note for him was a little over $7.4 million. We financed that for 20 years. So then we simulated everything again. And in a side-by-side comparison, base scenario is the status quo, which is not buying the land that he was doing before. Alternative 1 is buying that land and seeing the difference. Overall profitability was a little bit better by buying that land, especially the upside potential. His equity went down though, because he had more levels of debt. And you can see that here. If you look at his debt levels, they went from this in the base scenario to up here in the alternative scenario. But overall, it did improve his liquidity because he was more profitable. Even at the higher debt levels, he was able to make those loan payments because they were spread out over a longer period of time. And this red line here tracks his ending cash or working capital with the base scenario or the status quo. And this green line tracks his new potential working capital. So I can sit there and tell, yeah, well, overall, when I'm doing the simulation, it seems like it might not be a bad idea for you to buy. And it looks great when you go to the banker and say, hey, I need $7.4 million. If you've done something more than just happened. And so that's the whole thing. And I will pass this around. This is a sample report that we will do. This is what I would do if you go to Farm Systems. And it's a pretty in-depth report that just shows everything you have to do with your own. So anyway, the cost of that is $400 to go through that. If anybody's interested, you can tell me, or I've got brochures on the back table next to Brenda. And you can just fill it out here. I don't know what you have to well at this point and scan it to me. I'm doing 2 jobs right now, so I'm not quite as quick as I used to be on it, but I will fix that.
Did how long does it take you to put one of those together?
Depends on the time of year, right now, I've probably been done in 4 weeks, January, when I'm talking every damn day, it'll probably be long. So, and Will does it down the level too, and Will's actually just busy than I am right now, because we'll have another box coming, so. Anyway, we both do this, and then we also have people in consultation.
How many do you have like year over year return?
You know, I have about a 50-60% retention rate probably. Paula, who's usually here, she's been out the last couple of weeks. I think they've done it like 12-15 years for me. So a lot of guys want to do it every year. And once you've done it once, it's not $400, it's $200 to go. So you do this. And that is the other cool thing about that is that not only do we look at your individual operation, farmers, I've noticed it's not so much how they're doing as long as you're doing better than their neighbor. And so we do have a stoplight graph here that has industry averages. And it will show you kind of overall, here's your financial measures for cash or debt levels or profit. And then are you green compared to the rest of the industry, which is a strong overall, or are you acceptable, cautionary, or are you? So it's just a really cool one-on-one intensive financial analysis.
Do you take that any further and do like succession planning with it?
Not really, I've done a little bit of it, it's not great at doing tax projections. And that is the issue we have with it, but I mean, I do have some guys, I have one that wanted to incorporate his son into it, but he didn't know what that would do. So we assumed that his son would be hired as an employee the first year. And then every year he would get a little bit more of this. And so I ran side-by-side analysis for him and his son to see exactly when was a point where he could let go of the second year. So I do a little bit of that, but like I said, the tax implications are kind of a problem. I don't think the tax in this is really that great, but yeah, we can do some of it, especially not still. Otherwise, I know nobody really likes QuickBooks anymore. It's not my favorite thing either. But I do have a online class for QuickBooks, completely self-paced. I've got some brochures in the back of that too. $55 to go through that and a year to get through it. Hearing me do financial reporting videos for 3 hours may take you a year to get through it. I don't have to lie to you. But I do have it broke out by different modules. So if you want to learn how to enter bills or write checks, rate vendors, you take that class, you can watch those series of videos, do some exercises, and it should do a pretty good job teaching you. I just got out with an online course, it was online. There's also a QuickBooks desktop on there as well. I need to update that, but it seems like they're kind of phasing it out, but it should, most of it can be some issues. And if you want a more in-person class, believe it or not, I'm less boring teaching QuickBooks in person, although it's financial accounting, guys. You can only do so much with it. I am teaching a workshop in Plainview on December 7th. Anybody that might be interested in signing up for that, you can call that number, you can just let me know and I'll get it for That's basically all the extension resources I have. There's 2 others that I get questions on a lot that I love. One is I get calls all the time from farmers and ranchers wanting to renegotiate their lease agreements, and they want me to do them sample. ADM gets really twitchy about that because they don't have to help you do a contract. Tiffany cannot help you negotiate a lease or have anything to do with the written lease other than tell you what to do or not. But there is a website, it's called aglease101.org. If you go on there under the document library, they have fill in the blank tax farm lease forms and I think it's cash farm lease, crop share farm lease, and passions. Completely fill in the blank, kind of like 1-800 Rocker Will to me, it was jacked up about, but she likes it. So she's the one that told me about it. So if you need something, just to sit down with your landlord, make sure you don't miss anything, these are really good template to start with, you can go pull that up, and I just kind of have the most popular three. There's a ton more on them, it's like flexible cash use arrangements and some others. So anyway, Actors 101 document library, fill in the blank lease forms, those are great. The second question I always get though is what is the going rate for a cash lease? Sure, you get a lot of that too, Clay, so. Good. It's an EWAG, guys, maybe even a WAG, depending on what type of area you're in. But there is a website, it's TexasASFMRA.com. That's the Texas Society of Farm and Ranch Appraisers, I believe is what it's called, something like that. It's an acronym. Every year, they actually survey every farm and ranch appraiser in Texas, that's part of their membership. And they ask about what is the going cash lease rate for different types of lease agreements, farmland and pasture land. And what would you pay for a piece of land today? What is the going actual market value of those things? And then every April, they actually publish those results and put it on them. And so this was published back in April, it's a year behind, so this is for 2022. But you can pull up there and say, well, in the North Panhandle, irrigated cropland with average water, which is probably our typical lease rate, is going to be 125 to 175 cash lease rate. Or if you've got marginal water, it's more like 75 to 125. Probably more on the low end. A lot of those cash lease rates really fluctuate based on what market price. Market prices are good, they're gonna have higher lease rate than the prices suck. So I would say they're trading more toward the, sucky end right now. Same way with rangeland. Rangeland costs somewhere between $7 and $12 an acre. I think 10 to 12 is probably more realistic. So they're not perfect, but they can be a good place to start when you're going in there, especially if you're talking to your landlord and say, hey, I'm gonna pay you $10 an acre or $12 an acre. And they get all blustery and say, hey, this is what's going on with you. So it gives you some kind of document publication rather than just, hey, this is a great idea, what I'm doing. Great. So that's really all I had. I'm gonna do some business cards.